1989 – The Soviet Union announced its withdrawal from Afghanistan, marking the end of its military intervention. 1991 student protests in Albania led to the fall of the communist regime and the beginning of democratic reforms. 1958 – The French military bombed Saqqat Sidi Yusuf, escalating tensions during Algeria's war for independence. 1993 – Andorra prepared for its first modern constitution, transitioning into a parliamentary democracy. 2002 – Angola moved closer to peace as the civil war neared its end following the death of UNITA leader Jonas Savimbi. 2004 – Antigua hosted a major cricket match at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium, showcasing its love for the sport. 1977 – Argentina's women's hockey team played its first international match, marking a milestone in sports. 1921 – The Armenian Revolutionary Federation launched an uprising against Soviet control in Armenia. 1879 – The first intercolonial cricket match between South Australia and Victoria took place in Adelaide. 1964 – Austria won its first Winter Olympics gold medal in Innsbruck, solidifying its reputation in winter sports. 1998 – Azerbaijan hosted its first oil and gas conference, highlighting its role as an energy hub. 1987 – The Bahamas hosted the Caribta Games, showcasing its prominence in Caribbean athletics. 2002 – Bahrain officially became a kingdom under King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. 1952 – The Bengali language movement gained momentum with protests against the imposition of Urdu. 1967 – Barbados participated in its first Pan American Games, marking its entry into international sports. 1991 – Belarus played a key role in the Minsk Agreement, signaling the dissolution of the Soviet Union. 1944 – Nazi Germany bombed Hasselt, Belgium, during World War II, causing significant destruction. 1970 – Belize moved its capital to Belmopan after Hurricane Hattie devastated Belize City. 1990 – Benin transitioned to a multi-party democracy during its national conference. 2007 – Bhutan began preparations for its first democratic elections, transitioning from monarchy. 2009 – Bolivia enacted a new constitution, recognizing indigenous rights and restructuring its government. 1984 – Sarajevo hosted the Winter Olympics, bringing global attention to Bosnia. 1974 – Botswana signed a trade agreement with South Africa, boosting its economy. 1981 – Brazil celebrated its annual carnival, with Rio de Janeiro hosting a memorable parade. 1984 – Brunei joined the United Nations after gaining independence from Britain. In 1945 – Bulgaria declared war on Nazi Germany during World War II. 1966 – Burkina Faso experienced its first post-independence coup d'état. 1993 – Burundi held its first democratic presidential elections. 1986 – Cabo Verde joined ECOWAS, strengthening its regional ties. 1979 – Vietnamese forces captured Phnom Penh, ending the Khmer Rouge regime. 1998 Cameroon's soccer team qualified for the FIFA World Cup, uniting the nation. 1971 Canada passed the Multiculturalism Act, becoming the first country to adopt multiculturalism officially. 1996 A peace accord was signed to end a mutiny in the armed forces. 1980 Chad's civil war intensified as rival factions clashed in N'Djamena. 2010 Chile launched a major rescue operation after a devastating earthquake. 1974 China completed the Nanjing Yangtze River Bridge, a major engineering achievement. 1816 Colombia's independence movement gained momentum with a key offensive. 1999 Comoros experienced a military coup led by Colonel Azali Assoumani. 1960 Congo-Brazzaville celebrated its independence from France. 1948 Costa Rica held presidential elections, leading to the abolition of its army. 1992 Croatia was officially recognized as an independent state by the European Community. 1962 Cuba was excluded from the Organization of American States, OAS, due to its Soviet alignment. 1975 Cyprus began peace talks to address the division between Greek and Turkish Cypriots. 1993 Czechia adopted its first constitution after splitting from Slovakia. 1944 Denmark's resistance movement launched sabotage operations against Nazi occupiers. 1977 Djibouti prepared for its independence from France. 1979 Dominica began recovery efforts after Hurricane David caused significant damage. 1844 The Dominican Republic's independence movement intensified against Haitian rule. 1997 Ecuador's Congress impeached President Bakaram, leading to political reform. 1958 Egypt and Syria united to form the United Arab Republic, UAR. 1983 El Salvador's civil war intensified as U.S. military aid to the Salvadoran government increased. 1968 Equatorial Guinea prepared for its independence from Spain, which was officially granted later that year. 1994 Eritrea signed its first trade agreement with Ethiopia after gaining independence in 1993. 1920 Estonia signed the Tartu Peace Treaty with Soviet Russia, securing its independence. 1968 Eswatini began preparations for its independence from British colonial rule, achieved later that year. In 1937 Ethiopian resistance fighters launched attacks against Italian occupation forces during the Second Italo-Ethiopian War. 1970 Fiji began drafting its constitution in preparation for independence from British rule. 1940 Finland continued its defense against Soviet forces during the Winter War, gaining international admiration. 1962 A protest against the Algerian War in Paris turned violent, resulting in the Chiron metro station massacre. 1961 Gabon signed a major trade agreement with France, strengthening post-independence economic ties. 1965 Gambia prepared for its independence from British colonial rule, which was achieved 2 days later. 1921 Soviet forces invaded Georgia, leading to its incorporation into the Soviet Union. 1945 Allied forces launched a major offensive against Nazi Germany during World War II. 1957 Ghana finalized preparations for its independence from British colonial rule, achieved the following month. 1833 Otto of Bavaria was declared the first modern king of Greece after its independence from the Ottoman Empire. 1974 Grenada celebrated its first Independence Day after gaining sovereignty from Britain. 1976 Guatemala continued recovery efforts after a devastating earthquake killed thousands earlier that month. 1959 Guinea signed a trade agreement with Ghana, strengthening Pan-African cooperation. 1974 Guinea-Bissau's independence movement gained momentum as Portugal faced internal political struggles. 1970 Guyana declared itself a cooperative republic, transitioning from a monarchy under British rule. 1986 Haitian dictator Jean-Claude "Baby Doc" Duvalier fled the country, ending decades of family rule. 1982 Honduras adopted a new constitution, establishing a democratic framework after years of military rule. 1945 Soviet forces captured Budapest, marking a turning point in World War II. 1944 Iceland prepared for its independence referendum, which led to the establishment of the Republic of Iceland. 1931 Revolutionary Bhagat Singh's trial for the Lahore conspiracy case continued, inspiring India's independence movement. 1949 Indonesia's independence movement gained international support during negotiations with the Dutch. 1979 The Iranian Revolution intensified as Ayatollah Khomeini consolidated power after returning from exile. 1963 A coup d'état overthrew Iraqi Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasem, bringing the Ba'ath Party to power. 1922 The Irish Free State began drafting its constitution following the Anglo-Irish Treaty. 1944 The Battle of Monte Cassino began, a pivotal conflict during the Allied campaign in Italy during World War II. 1963 Côte d'Ivoire signed a major trade agreement with France, boosting its post-independence economy. 1962 Jamaica began preparations for its independence from Britain, achieved later that year. 1904 Japan launched a surprise attack on Russia at Port Arthur, starting the Russo-Japanese War. 1999 King Abdullah II ascended to the throne following the death of his father, King Hussein. 1994 Kazakhstan signed its first major trade agreement with Russia after gaining independence. 1952 Queen Elizabeth II learned of her father's death while visiting Kenya, marking the start of her reign. 1979 Kiribati signed a treaty with the United States, resolving territorial disputes over several islands. 1948 North Korea established its military, the Korean People's Army, under Kim Il-sung's leadership. 1988 South Korea prepared to host the Summer Olympics in Seoul, showcasing its modernization. 2008 Kosovo finalized preparations for its declaration of independence, which occurred later that month. 1991 Kuwait's liberation from Iraqi occupation during the Gulf War gained momentum with coalition forces advancing. 1993 Kyrgyzstan introduced its new currency, the som, after gaining independence from the Soviet Union. 1973 Laos signed the Vientiane Agreement, aiming to end its civil war. 1921 Latvia was recognized as an independent state by the Allied powers after World War I. 2005 Lebanon's political crisis deepened following the assassination of former Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. 1970 Lesotho faced a political crisis after disputed election results led to a state of emergency. 1848 Liberia elected its first president, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, after declaring independence. 2011 protests against Muammar Gaddafi's regime began, sparking the Libyan civil war. 1921 Liechtenstein adopted its modern constitution, establishing a constitutional monarchy. 1919 Lithuania's War of Independence saw a key victory against Soviet forces, solidifying its sovereignty. 1945 Luxembourg was liberated from Nazi occupation during World War II by Allied forces. 1897 Madagascar officially became a French colony after the monarchy was abolished. 1994 Malawi prepared for its first multi-party elections, marking a shift from one-party rule. 1956 Malaysia, then Malaya, signed the London Agreement, paving the way for its independence from Britain. / 1968 Maldives transitioned from a sultanate to a republic following a national referendum. 1961 Mali signed a major trade agreement with the Soviet Union, strengthening its post-independence economy. 1942 Malta was awarded the George Cross by King George VI for its bravery during World War II. 1986 The Marshall Islands signed the Compact of Free Association with the United States, gaining greater autonomy. 1976 Mauritania faced territorial disputes with Morocco over the Western Sahara region. 1968 Mauritius finalized preparations for its independence from British rule, achieved the following month. 1913 The 10 Tragic Days began, a series of events leading to a coup during the Mexican Revolution. 1991 Micronesia signed a fisheries agreement with Japan, boosting its economy. 1994 Moldova signed its first constitution after gaining independence from the Soviet Union. 1962 Monaco adopted a new constitution, limiting the powers of the monarchy and establishing a parliamentary system. 1921 Mongolia's independence movement gained momentum with Soviet support against Chinese forces. 2008 Montenegro began negotiations for European Union membership, marking a step toward integration. 1956 Morocco signed agreements with France and Spain, leading to its independence later that year. 1977 Mozambique joined the non-aligned movement, emphasizing its neutrality during the Cold War. 1947 Myanmar's independence leader Aung San signed the Panglong Agreement, uniting ethnic groups. 1990 Namibia prepared for its independence from South African rule, achieved the following month. 1968 Nauru celebrated its first Independence Day after gaining sovereignty from Australia. 1951 Nepal ended the Rana autocracy, restoring the monarchy and paving the way for democracy. 1944 Dutch resistance fighters launched a major sabotage operation against Nazi occupiers during World War II. 1931 New Zealand experienced the Hawke's Bay earthquake, one of its deadliest natural disasters. 1984 Nicaragua faced increased U.S. sanctions during the Contra War, escalating tensions in the region. 1999 Niger held its first democratic elections after a military coup the previous year. 1977 Nigeria hosted the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, Festac, celebrating African heritage. 1994 North Macedonia, then Fyrom, was officially recognized by the United Nations. 1945 Norway's resistance movement intensified as Allied forces advanced against Nazi occupiers. 1970 Oman began modernizing its infrastructure under Sultan Qaboos' leadership after a peaceful coup. 1974 Pakistan recognized Bangladesh as an independent country, ending years of tension. 1994 Palau signed the Compact of Free Association with the United States, gaining greater autonomy. 1988 The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, declared its commitment to a two-state solution. 1904 The United States began construction of the Panama Canal, transforming global trade routes. 1975 Papua New Guinea prepared for its independence from Australia, achieved later that year. 1989 Paraguay's dictator Alfredo Stroessner was overthrown in a military coup, ending decades of rule. 1825 Peru's independence movement gained momentum with the liberation of key territories. 1935 The Philippines ratified its constitution, establishing the Commonwealth government under U.S. 1919 Poland's first parliamentary elections were held after regaining independence. 1668 Portugal signed the Treaty of Lisbon, ending the Iberian Union and restoring its independence from Spain. 1995 Qatar began major economic reforms under Emir Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. 1866 Romania adopted its first modern constitution, laying the foundation for its monarchy. 1904 The Russo-Japanese War began with Japan's surprise attack on Port Arthur. 1993 Rwanda signed the Arusha Accords, aiming to end its civil war. 1984 St. Kitts and Nevis joined the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS. 1979 St. Lucia prepared for its independence from Britain, achieved later that month. 1979 St. Vincent and the Grenadines began drafting its constitution in preparation for independence. 1962 Samoa celebrated its first Independence Day after gaining sovereignty from New Zealand. 1797 San Marino was recognized as an independent republic by Napoleon Bonaparte. 1991 São Tomé and Príncipe adopted a multi-party political system, transitioning from one-party rule. 1935 Saudi Arabia signed its first oil concession agreement with Standard Oil of California, marking the start of its oil industry. 1963 Senegal signed a cultural cooperation agreement with France, strengthening post-independence ties. 2008 Serbia rejected Kosovo's impending declaration of independence, escalating regional tensions. 1977 Seychelles joined the United Nations, solidifying its place in the international community. 1999 Sierra Leone's civil war saw a turning point as peace talks began between the government and rebels. In 1963 Singapore joined Malaysia in a merger, which later dissolved in 1965, leading to its independence. 1993 Slovakia adopted its first constitution after peacefully splitting from Czechoslovakia. 1849 Slovenia celebrated its first Prešeren Day, honoring poet Franz Prešeren, now a national cultural holiday. 1978 The Solomon Islands prepared for independence from British rule, achieved later that year. 2017 Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed was elected President of Somalia, marking a step toward political stability. 2011 South Sudan finalized preparations for its independence referendum, which passed overwhelmingly. 1937 The Battle of Malaga ended during the Spanish Civil War, with nationalist forces capturing the city. 1948 Sri Lanka, then Ceylon, celebrated its first Independence Day after gaining sovereignty from Britain. 1956 Sudan joined the United Nations after gaining independence from Anglo-Egyptian rule. 1980 A military coup led by Desi Bouterse overthrew the Surinamese government, beginning years of military rule. 1986 Sweden hosted the Winter Olympics in Stockholm, showcasing its winter sports prowess. 1865 Switzerland adopted the metric system, modernizing its measurement standards. 1963 A coup brought the Ba'ath Party to power in Syria, reshaping its political landscape. 1993 Tajikistan signed a peace agreement with opposition forces, aiming to end its civil war. 1967 Tanzania adopted the Arusha Declaration, emphasizing socialism and self-reliance. 1933 Thailand, then Siam, adopted its first permanent constitution, transitioning to a constitutional monarchy. 2000 Timor-Leste began rebuilding efforts after gaining independence from Indonesia. 1963 Togo's first president, Sylvanus Olympio, was assassinated during a military coup. 1970 Tonga joined the Commonwealth of Nations after gaining independence from British protection. 1976 Trinidad and Tobago transitioned from a monarchy to a republic within the Commonwealth. 1958 Tunisia was bombed by French forces in the Saket Sidi Youssef incident, escalating tensions during Algeria's war for independence. 1921 Turkey's War of Independence saw a key victory at the First Battle of Inonu. 1992 Turkmenistan adopted its first constitution after gaining independence from the Soviet Union. 1978 Tuvalu prepared for independence from Britain, achieved later that year. 1971 Idi Amin consolidated power after overthrowing Milton Obote in a military coup. 2015 Ukraine signed the Minsk II agreement, aiming to de-escalate the conflict in eastern Ukraine. 1972 Ras Al Khaimah joined the UAE, completing the Federation of Seven Emirates. 1587 Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed for her involvement in plots against Queen Elizabeth I. 1910 The Boy Scouts of America was founded, becoming one of the largest youth organizations in the country. 1856 Uruguay signed a peace treaty with Brazil, ending a period of conflict between the two nations. 1992 Uzbekistan joined the United Nations after gaining independence from the Soviet Union. 1980 Vanuatu prepared for independence from joint British-French colonial rule, achieved later that year. 1929 The Lateran Treaty negotiations were finalized, establishing Vatican City as an independent state. 1999 Hugo Chavez was inaugurated as President of Venezuela, beginning his controversial leadership. 1965 The United States launched Operation Flaming Dart, escalating its involvement in the Vietnam War. 2015 Yemen's political crisis deepened as Houthi forces took control of the capital, Sana'a. 1964 Zambia, then Northern Rhodesia, prepared for independence from British colonial rule. 1980 Zimbabwe held its first democratic elections, leading to independence from British rule.